All right, so welcome to Golf Clash. So if you're new to Golf Clash, maybe even if you've played for a little while and you're not having the success that you would like if you're as you're going up through the tours, trying to figure out how to adjust for wind. So when you first start playing, you look at the courses that are out here. You know, if we go down here to tour 1 when we first start and getting into tour 2, the winds are real low, and so it's not that big of a deal. You know, like you're playing in tour 2 and you might have, let's see what the we have 1 to 3 mile an hour winds. So on a lot of these holes, taking your shots coming up, number one, your clubs are lower developed. That's one of the things that you get as you play more and you've been involved in the game more. As you open up more chests. We're farmers, and we get club cards and we can upgrade our clubs and we can get better equipment. And as you get better equipment, you're starting to move up the ranks and wanting to get higher up into the tours. And as you start going up, the winds start to get a little bit higher. So now all of a sudden you were kicking ass down here and not having to do any adjustments. And now all of a sudden you're up here at Tour 4 and you catch that 7 mile an hour wind. Well, 7 miles an hour is going to push you off target quite a bit. And now all of a sudden those shots that you were making are ending up in the rough and the water and the sand. So how do we fix that? Well, what method do we use? So when you're watching people out there playing, you're going to see a couple different types of methods. So let's go out. I want to apologize before I get too far. I've been trying to condense this down into one video, and I don't think it does it justice. There's a lot of information to learn, and I only have part of it. There's even more to learn if you want to go up the scales, and techniques to learn as you go up the scales. But to get you started so that you can get really successful at this game, just the absolute basics. So let's go out and I'm sure that we're going to see both techniques. We'll play one of those Tour 4 matches that I was talking about, where you come out on the course and you see people eyeball it. Some people will set their ball guides up so that it actually kind of goes towards the hole. So if they hit it perfect, it goes towards the hole. And then all of a sudden they make some move. They move the ball off the target, and you're like, what the heck's the deal? I actually still feel the same about them as well. Like, what the heck are you doing? You got to have a method if you want to get successful so that you can adjust for wind. So let me just lay it out there. I'm not going to do anything special. Now that wind is going with us, so where I'm at I could actually use it, but I'm going to take it out. This club hits at 2.1 per ring, so 1.2 is about half a ring. The orange ring is a whole ring, the blue ring is a whole ring, the clear, or sometimes people will call it the green ring, is a whole ring, the white ring is a whole ring, but the center ring is split in half, so we have a half a ring. And I hit it great to the right. Getting out on the fairway. And that's the thing about hitting. It's ideal when you first start playing. We want to try and hit perfect. There are several different trainers out there. I'll show you some websites here in a second, but I want to demo, because I'm almost everybody I ever play down here eyeballs their wind. Very few people make great wind adjustments, and the whole deal is that when you're first starting out, what you want is to have a really high wind percentage, because the more times you win, the more chests you get, and the more chests you get, the more club cards you get, and the more club cards you get, the more you're going to be able to upgrade your club. See, they just eyeballed it. They just scooted it over. Now, I will say in this situation, this is not the best situation available because the wind is going with us. So not really doing too much of an adjustment for the wind right here is not going to really hurt them. Where this really comes into play is these shots into the cup. This is where having great wind adjustments can make a difference. So I'm in a Kingfisher. This is a short iron. And you'll see people do this where they pull it forward. Now you see I'm pulling up against that red line right there, and then all of a sudden it switches to a different club. That means I'm at max club. And if I pull back, you'll see I hit another red line, and that's minimum. So there's min, there's mid, there's max. So I'm at max club right here. And at max club, this club hits at 1.2 per ring. So 3/6 divided by 1/2 would be 3 rings. Now you notice I'm using my take shot down here to find a spot. There's 3 rings. Hitting it perfect. Ooh, close, close. But you can see how well on target that was. Where if I'd had my spin just a little bit right, I could have sank that shot. And so it's really important on these second shots. We call these the money shots in the game. The first shot is just a layup to put you in the right spot, and this right here is the deal. So like my opponent's eyeballing it. And what's funny about that is, let's see how this perfect shot goes. The wind in this situation was blowing in this direction, and they pulled the ball back this way. This is one of those things about eyeballing it or having a method. So we obviously want to have some kind of a method. When I first started playing, if I hadn't been able to, if somebody out there hadn't been smart enough to figure out a method that I could learn to adjust for the wind, I probably would not have continued to play. Because as you go up in levels, it's not a big deal when you're playing Tour 1, Tour 2, Tour 3. But once you start getting into Tour 4, then it starts to become a little bit bigger deal. And you can get fairly good at eyeballing it, but once you get up to Tour 7, and if you want to go up and you're up into Tour 8, this is where the rubber meets the road, where people that have a method are going to stand out. And what'll happen as you go up in tours is you're going to find that the brackets are getting, the tours are getting more and more full of people that actually have a valid method for adjusting for the wind. And so the matches get tougher. Not only does the courses get tougher and the wind gets higher, so we have to do it, but the competition gets tougher, because if you're playing up at those levels, you got to start having some kind of a valid method, something that's repeatable in order to adjust for wind. Now I know from past experience playing this hole that I'm going to shoot from right there. And this club is 1 per ring. It's a 100% accurate club. I'm doing what's called a rough bump here. So 1 per ring, 1.1 would be 1.1 rings. Hitting it perfect. It should be just a little short with that wind, but it could be in the hole. It could be in the hole. In the hole. Now, let's see if my my opponent uses their eyeball adjustment to get it on there, as opposed to making a valid wind adjustment. We'll see what they do here. And when you first start playing, you don't know any of these holes. So I will tell you, if you get out here with somebody and it seems like they're making great wind adjustments and they're kicking your butt and they're playing the hole, replay them. Replay them. Learn as much as you can from that opponent. You may lose a little bit of coinage, but it's okay. There you have it. The difference between using a method for adjusting wind and not using a method for adjusting wind. So now you kind of see, if you've been out there on the course, you've seen both of those types of players. One that's doing some weird stuff and taking a bunch of time and making adjustments, and then one that's just eyeballing it and throwing it out there. And I can tell you, you will have a much higher win percentage if you can figure out how to adjust for the wind. So let's take this. I don't know how many videos I'll have to shoot. This might be one big long video, but let's go through what to do here. So the first thing you want to do, it's always a good idea to join a clan. And the reason that you want to join a clan is that if you're in a clan, you can have access to having multiple bags. Now, it's not a big deal when you first start playing because, let's just be honest, the clubs are kind of crappy. You probably only have one decent bag, maybe two. And if you have one or two, you got enough clubs to make one or two decent bags. The way that I have mine set up is I have a distance bag. This is the farthest hitting driver that I have in this account. And then I have an accurate bag. And a quarterback doesn't hit nearly as far as an extra mile, but it's very accurate and has good ball guide. I can see where the ball is going to go. And there's a lot of drives where we're not trying to pound it out there as far as we can. And then I have a bag that's got a utility bag. Just having access to 3 is usually enough. But let's take our first bag. Let's say you only have enough clubs to get one bag. Which clubs do you choose? Well, the most popular club in the game, everybody wants to get an Apocalypse, but I can tell you pound for pound, what club has ended up on more holes than any other club in the game? It's probably an Extra Mile. An Extra Mile is definitely, and we get it very early. We get it at Tour 2, and it's very easy to get it upgraded. So when you first start playing, a lot of your secondary clubs down here to try and get up on the green are lacking. The driver's lacking. You start off with a Rocket, it just doesn't have a lot of distance. So when you get your Extra Mile, really kind of working on the Extra Mile. But write your clubs down. So I've got an Extra Mile 7. That's the club that I have in this bag. I have a Sniper 6. And most of you are going to be using your Horizon. A Horizon it's not a very accurate club. Okay, so this is where it comes in really, really handy to, number one, know how to adjust for wind, and number two, be able to hit perfect. But pick the clubs that are in your bag. What I've got in my bag here is an Extra Mile, a Sniper 6, a Goliath 7, a Kingfisher 4, a Firefly 5, a Machete 9, and a Malibu 7. And if we look at them, every club has a number here that's for accuracy. And this accuracy is going to determine how many rings we're going to pull it and how much of an adjustment we're going to make based off the accuracy of that club. So here we've got a 96 accurate club. There is a lot of ways that you can interpret this accuracy. The hand math. So I do a lot of it by hand. I don't use the app. I write down my numbers and I work from there. And the way that I can establish that is we start with 100. A 100% accurate club is 1 per ring. That means each one of those rings that we saw out there on the course accounts for 1 mile per hour of wind. So if you have a 2 mile an hour wind, you move 2 rings. It's pretty simple. A lot of people try and get accurate clubs. As you go up in the tours and the wind gets higher and you got a 16 mile an hour wind, let me tell you, pulling out 1 per ring is kind of a pain. So you'll see people as they go up in the tours where instead of having that club that's at 100, they may have a club that's at 50, because at 50% accurate, it's 2 per ring. So they don't have to pull as many rings when they're adjusting for the wind. So here's how it works. 100, 95, 90, 85, 80, 75, 70, 65, 60, 55, 50. 100% accurate club is 1 per ring. If we had a 95 accurate club, when this Malibu is pretty close to 95 accurate, it'd be 1.1. If it's a 90% accurate club, it's at 1.2 per ring. That means that if you had a 2 mile an hour wind and you were pulling against a 100% accurate club, you would make a 2 ring adjustment. But if your club was at 90% accurate, that would be 2 divided by 1.2. You would only move 1.66 rings. If you're at 85, it's 1.3. 80 is 1.4. 75% accurate club is at 1.5. So we can see like an Extra Mile is at 45 down here for most of its life, which is about 2.1 per ring. So if you had that quarterback we were talking about earlier that's 100% accurate and you had a 2 mile an hour wind and you moved 2 rings, then you're adjusting properly for the wind. But if you took that extra mile and you moved it 2 rings, you've now moved it 4.2 and you're off target. Way off target. So knowing how to work these numbers going down the scale, you can do the hand math. So I can look at any of my clubs, I can look at my extra mile and I can go, hey, it's at 45, so it's at 2.1 per ring. I can look at my sniper and go, wow, it's 100% accurate, it's 1 per ring. I can look at my Goliath. My Goliath is at 52 accurate. That's pretty close to 50. That's at 2 per ring. I can look at my Kingfisher at 1.88. That's pretty close to 90. That's 1.2 per ring. Maybe argued it's 1.3 if you wanted to drop down to the 85. What I find is some clubs are more accurate than others. So like I think of the Kingfisher as being a pretty accurate club. So if I was rounding up, I would round up. If you're using the apps, they don't round up. They do the fractional math. And so it's not a big deal if it's only 1 mile an hour wind. But when you get a 10 mile an hour wind and you get those fractions that are in there and you think, I'm just going to round it down. Well, if you rounded it down and it was at 4.2, but you times that by 10, now all of a sudden we're at 4.2. It can make a big difference. So that's one way to do it, is to just do the hand math. Look at your clubs, pick which clubs you want, write them down. I just got a piece of paper sitting next to me that says Extra Mile 7, Sniper 6, and then I just have that adjustment on there. Now, what other ways can we do this? Well, we have some resources that we didn't have when the game first came out, and we have 2. One of them is Golf Clash Notebook. And Golf Clash Notebook has a lot of information on here for you to be able to put in the numbers and print out a sheet so that you can have a sheet next to you that's got numbers for all of your clubs. And we're going to talk, let me talk about this one first. So here what you do is you come into Golf Clash Notebook, Golf Clash Notebook IO, GC Notebook IO, and you'll go over to Tools and you'll go down to Wind Creator. And here you'll be able to pick your club. So you can pick any club that you have. You got the beginner sand wedge, you pick that club and then you add it. You pick which level it is and then you add it to your bag. So you had the Amazon and you got it at level 3 and you add that club to your bag so that you can get all the clubs that you're possibly going to use in your bag. Let me erase those. Hey, that's not what I wanted. There we go. Is that right? Let's get rid of that one. So I've got an Extra Mile 7. This is what I got in my bag. I've got an Extra Mile 7, a Sniper 6, a Goliath 7, a Kingfisher 4, a Fireflyer 5, and a Machete 9. I would recommend when you first start playing to start off with a 0 power ball. If you're playing in tours 1, 2, 3, 4, as you get better, you'll be able to play all the way to tour 6, tour 7 with just a Marlin, just a 1 power ball. You might up that, or excuse me, a 0 power ball with a little bit of side spin, but you don't really need that big of a ball. And you get up to tour 8, now you're talking about, depending on your skill level, you may up that to a Katana or, a 2 power ball. I think when I played tour, last time I went through and played tour 8, I played tour 8 with a 1 power ball. Just to get a little, it was a 1 power, 2 side, and give me a little more side spin. I digress. So, I would start off with when you print this sheet out, just start off with a 0 power ball. Okay? So we're going to create the chart. And what it's going to do is it's going to give us a printout of all of our clubs, and it's going to give us a whole bunch of numbers. Okay? When you first start playing, this column right here, don't worry about mid or min. Okay? Once you get comfortable working the wind out, because it takes a little bit of time to set the shot up. And once you get that process down and you get comfortable with it, then you can come back and look at your sheet and you can start paying a little bit of attention to mid and minimum. But to start off with, I would focus just on max. And where you're going to be at is you're going to be really on this first, this section right here. that's where you're going to live. Because the wind, number one, the winds, what they're telling you here is that these are color coded just like our rings. So if you're in the first ring, that ring represents 2.2 miles an hour of wind. If the wind was 5 miles an hour, well, 2 rings is 4.3. So that means I'm going to have to move a little bit more than 2 rings. And so it's telling you if you get to, so if you had this club out there and you made a 5-ring pull all the way out to the white ring, you've basically pulled out 10.8 miles per hour of wind. In rookie, when you're playing in these lower tours, you're very seldom ever going to be above or below your blue ring. You're just looking at these first 3 numbers. And really, that's where your focus should be. But for me, I only really focus on this number right here, because that's telling me how much each ring represents. And then I have a calculator sitting next to me, my phone, and then I can go pick a number. Okay, I think you all picked 3.4 miles per hour. I think that's the number you picked, right? And we can divide 3.4 by 2.2, and so if we had a 3.4 mile an hour wind and we were making an adjustment with our extra mile 7, we would make a 1.5 ring adjustment. It's 1.5 rings. If we were hitting that 3.4 wind with our sniper, 3.4 divided by 1.1 is going to be 3.09 or 3.1 rings. That 3.4 mile an hour wind with our Goliath divided by 2 is 1.7 rings. So it's 1.7. This is going to be 1.1. 3.4 divided by 2.2 is this was 1.54. If we were using our Kingfisher, 1.4, that's 2.42 rings. And so you can see that if you go out there and you're like, hey, I'm just gonna move it a couple rings. Well, a couple rings with which club? Because if you move 2 rings with this club, now you've overpulled, you underpulled. Okay, so, and actually I made a mistake here. This is 2.1, 3.1. What was I thinking? I wrote the numbers down wrong. I wrote the numbers down wrong. 3.1. So here you would have underpulled if you only moved it 2 rings. So it's super important in this game, if you want to get successful at this game and you want to win more chests and you want to do better in the game, we need to have a method for working out wind. And so we need to be able to find these numbers. Now, you can, at the Golf Clash Notebook site, you can also, they have an app. And you can get the app. Let's see if I have the app loaded on my tablet. What the heck? All right, I found it. So if you can go to the Play Store and you can get the Golf Clash Notebook app, Notebook for Golf Clash, and we can come in here and we can set up our bag. So in this case, we're doing our main bag and we're going to take an extra mile, and this is going to do the math for us. So we got an extra mile and we've got a sniper. Let's go back here one. Hold on one second. I screwed up, not the app. We're going to do a bag setup. Is that right? Is that right? That is right. Goliath. Hey, do that. There we go. Goliath 7. Sniper 6. I was hitting in the wrong spot. You got to hit the number. That was in number 1. So it's an extra mile 7. So I got an extra mile 7. I got a Sniper 6. I got a Goliath 7. My short iron is a Kingfisher. I'm playing with a Kingfisher 4. Hey, let's choose that one. You got to hit the number to change the level, and then you got to hit off the number in order to pick it. And we got a machete. A machete 9. Let's pick that one. And then we're going to go play a Malibu. And we're going to play a Malibu 7. Pick that one. So there's my bag. I have selected it. So then we're going to go to wind assist. Hey. You doing that to me? Up here on top. Hold on. All right. So we did the wind assist, and when we do the wind assist, it pops up this little overlay. And so this overlay now has all the clubs in our bag. It has my extra mile. It has my extra mile 7. It has my sniper 6. It has my Goliath 7. My Kingfisher 4. My Firefly 5. My machete 9. And my Malibu 7. So it has all my clubs in that bag. So if we take that same example where we talked about earlier and we said, hey, we got a 3.4 mile an hour wind. You can see 3.4 miles per hour. And it's going to give us an adjustment that we're going to make for that wind. So here we're going to do with our extra mile at max club, we're going to do 1.6. And so it's going to be able, you're going to be able to, if I was using my sniper, it's going to give, it's 3.1 per ring at max. My Goliath is 1.7. And you'll notice that the numbers are slightly different than they were if we do the hand math. And that's because of that rounding up. So like if you get a fraction where you're supposed to move 1.35 and then you round it down to 1.3 or you round it up to 1.4, well, if we've got wind that's 6 miles an hour and we start taking that 0.5, that's, now we went from 0.5 to 3. So it starts to add up. So there's several ways you can do it. You can use the Golf Clash Notebook app. You can use those numbers and write them down and do it by hand. What else do we have? We have so many tools now that we did not have available in the past. And the other tool that we have available to us is we can also go to Golf Clash Tommy, their site, and they also have the same process where you can go in and put your clubs in, and you can use their app. So they also have a wind ring app. Or you can put in your clubs and then generate a PDF that's going to tell you the numbers for your club. Now Tommy's site does it a little bit different. So here I've picked all the clubs that I have. I've got my extra mile 7 in my wood. I've got my sniper 6, and I have all my clubs picked out here. And so when I hit generate PDF, this one's going to give me numbers in a different way. And what it's doing here, so when you look at these numbers are different, all right? So it's saying 1.4. Well, where does that come from? Well, the way Tommy's site works is, if you have a 3-4 mile an hour wind like we were talking about earlier, you would move 1.6 rings. If you have a 5 mile an hour wind, you'd move 2.3 rings. So instead of telling you that this club is 2.1 per ring and you have a 5 mile an hour wind, and so in that case you'd have a 5 mile an hour wind divided by 2.1, you would move it 2.38 rings. Here it's going to tell you if you have a 5 mile an hour wind, you just move it the 2.3 rings. It doesn't tell you what the value of each ring is. Now you could reverse math it and figure it out, but that's why these charts are so much longer, because they're giving you wind all the way to 6 miles per hour. Now, if you were playing in upper tours where the wind is higher than 6 miles an hour, then you would pick your wind range when you set the site up at Tommy's, and you'd say what tour you're in. So if you're in tour 12 and you generated the PDF, now what we're going to see is we're going to see winds that are starting at 12 and going all the way to right at 15. So that's a little, it's the same thing, but it's just a different way to approach it. So we have a lot of that stuff. I would recommend, when you first start playing, to follow the KISS method. Like, keep it simple. And I'm the only person that's stupid. I'm the only one that's talking, so I'm the only person that can be stupid here. So keep it simple. And keep it simple by doing this math by hand. It's not that hard. Okay, we all wrote down these numbers here earlier. I'm going to turn that app off. Hey. So I don't have that overlay while I'm doing it. So let's go back into the game. We now have some numbers. You have some numbers for your clubs. Connection error. And now what you can start doing is, now we have some numbers, now we have to start thinking about, and just as a little side note here, never play without an empty slot. We're harvesting cards, so if you're not getting club cards, you're not improving your clubs, and if you win, you don't win anything if you don't have an empty slot. So let's go back out to Tour 4, and now that we have some numbers in hand, let's see if we can apply them out on the course. Now, I'm just using, you can do this math in your head. It's not that hard to do in your head, especially if you're playing quite a bit, you're gonna remember your club numbers. We only have 7 numbers to remember here. And I actually didn't print them out, so I'm gonna have to, I should have wrote those down. What was I thinking? Let me write them down. That way I can be all right, I wrote my numbers down. So I wrote down all of my max numbers. Now let's get back out on the course and let's put these numbers to use and see how it works out. Now that we've got some numbers, and now that we have an idea that we need to make some kind of an adjustment, now we need to have some reference lines. Like, how can we take this wind out? There is the take shot button that you will see when it's our turn is what we're going to use for our line. Now there are some apps out there. You can, in Golf Clash Notebook, there is a grid that you can overlay onto your screen, and I think in Golf Clash Caddy there is also a grid. There's nothing wrong with those grids, but I don't like how they're laid out on the screen. So I use another program where you actually have to write the code for your grid, called Material Q. So if anybody out there is interested, I will post the code for Material Q. My opponent is going to end up in the sand. Maybe. And they did end up in the sand, but they didn't end up in the sand. Now, I've played these holes a lot, so I know how this hole plays out, and I do not have the unless I bring out a bigger ball, I just don't have the oomph to get over to that area. So I'm just going to lay it up. I'm going to lay it up right here so that I can then pitch it over to this island and then go for the green. Now I'm going to leave myself, you'll notice that when I set my shots up, I'm almost always a couple rings off of any surface. So it's 2.1, so that's about a ring. Hitting it perfect. There is so much stuff to talk about doing these, because there's so many techniques that you take for granted once you start playing the game, like setting it up and giving yourself room. But right now, just talking about wind and how to take out wind properly is a big deal. I mean, this is your success in this game is going to be determined on how well you can make adjustments for the wind, because the wind's a factor on every hole. Now granted, when you first start playing, the winds are pretty low, but that's not going to stay like that forever. And you can zoom up so that you can see the whole damn course at the same time. Especially when you're using your clubs, you know, being able to zoom up and see the whole hole, especially if it's a hole that you haven't been on before, instead of trying to walk around the course and looking at parts of it and trying to jigsaw puzzle it together. Zoom up, like On your touchscreen, just squeeze your fingers together and it'll zoom it up so that you can see where you're at and where you're going, so you have an idea of what you need to do. And this is so common in the game. You go from the rough to the rough, from the sand to the sand, because you're trying to do some hero shot. All they had to do was just get out there on that pad and they would have been fine. But no. Now me trying to stick it on there, for those of you that are new in the game, this is called a rough bump. And on rough bumps, you really want to know what the wind, how to adjust for the wind. So with our sniper, it's at 1.1 per ring. So it's 3.7 divided by 1.1, which means I'm going to move 3.36 rings. Okay, so the white ring's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and then I'm going to move 3.6. There's a quarter. There's 3.6. Hit a grate to the left, 1 ring grate, and just bounce it up there. I can tell you on those rough bumps, if you don't know how to adjust for wind properly, you can get in a lot of trouble. That wind on that rough bump, it was kind of hard to screw up. But if you have a headwind and you don't take enough wind out, you can end up not getting out of the rough, or you can over pull it and then you don't hit the rough and your ball goes crazy. My opponent's going to do some stupid thing like a forfeit here. I can feel it. I can feel it. Come on, come on. Hello. I was touching the screen to make sure. I got some error yesterday, that I've never seen in the 6 years I played this game. My opponent will time out. Now, if you've seen anybody play, or if you ran across somebody that had upper developed clubs where they've got more ball guide. Okay, there's my maximum club, and there's min. So where I'm at, there's max, there's the min. So I'm eking towards mid club, but we're not going to worry about that. We're going to just use our numbers. Going to get a look at it, make sure we're going towards the hole if everything goes right. So it's 4.7 divided by 1.1. 4.27 rings. So I'm going to use my take shot. I'm going to put the edge of the white ring right on my take shot. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 and a quarter. Isn't it perfect? And rolling out nicely towards the cup. Putting your fairway to fairway to green. This game, it's not like real golf. In real golf, there's a lot of times when you're in the rough and it's actually a better deal because your ball's up off the ground a little bit and you can really get underneath of it. But in Golf Clash, it is a huge detriment to be in the rough and the sand. As you get your clubs developed, you will get better clubs, but it's still, the needle's going to move faster, and it's not as good a deal as being in the fairway. Your best clubs hit from the fairway. And being able to stay in the fairway is more important. And my opponent is in big trouble. The cool thing about it is when you first start playing, if you have this technique of being able to adjust for the wind, just this simple technique for adjusting for the wind, and it doesn't take that long to just write your club numbers down. What you will find is that your clubs are going to get upgraded relatively quickly when you first start, so you may have to adjust those numbers on a fairly regular basis. But having a little cheat sheet with club card numbers And being able to apply that out on the field is going to net you a lot of wins. Your win percentage is going to be really good. I've played in a lot of tournaments in this account, and back in the day, we used to have shootouts in tournaments. If somebody didn't win out on the course, somebody always won because we had to pay to play every hole. And so we had shootouts. And being able to, I forfeited a lot of shootouts, so my win percentage is 52, but I've probably, of those 900 games that I lost, I probably forfeited half of them. And we want that win percentage. What you really want is your win percentage to be at 75%. That means you're winning at least half your matches out on the course, and you're winning 50% of the shootouts. But if you have this technique right here, and you're using the win ring method, in those first 4 or 5 tours, you're going to win a lot of matches, because there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to take the time like you are right now of trying to learn how to use that win ring method. Let's try that one more time. We'll try it one more time, and then I think I'll end this video, and then I'll do, this is going to be like a class. We'll have to go through, there is a lot of stuff to talk about, but just the absolute basics. We need to have these basics down in order to get the ball rolling. I think this is the same hole we played earlier. Now, you're going to be tempted when you first start playing to bring out a bunch of, you know, like balls. Like, hey, the ball is going to help me out, and I'm going to be able to really get, I'll be better if I bring out one of those balls. No, that's not going to help you. Save those good balls for tournaments. Okay? 2.45 rings. Now, the way the wind is blowing here, I'm going to have to do a max overpower shot. And the way the wind is, because we got forward moving wind, I can use that, but I still need to adjust for the wind. So the wind is 2.45 rings. And then I'm going to push that forward moving wind back on there to pick up that little teeny bit of distance. And I had to snap it off because I was running out of time. And that puts me in the drink. See, look, I'm trying to give you an example and I screw up. So it's always good to know that that even if you're experienced, you can still screw up. Never ever give up. Because my opponent, like if I can put that in the fairway, I can recover. Whereas my opponent may not. They brought out a bigger ball and they're doing the stuff. They may screw up and end up in the rough and let me get back in the game. But now we have to play everything right, or we're in trouble. But they're definitely in trouble right there. So they are not going to be able to get on in 2. And now I am absolutely screwed with that wind. That wind, can we say blows? Does the wind blow? Okay, 5-4. Once again, we're at 2.45 rings. See if I can catch that little fairway over there. Stay out of the rough. Not enough curl. This was a bad demo. Do I have to cut this one off at the end of the video and play another hole? This is going to be me and my opponent doing the whole thing of hitting from the rough to the rough. Hit from the rough to the rough. They might have gotten lucky hitting that great. They might have. All right. Now we are definitely just dinking around. It's going to take us 70 shots to get over there. Hitting it great. Just putting myself in a position where I got a great shot to the cup. Now I'm a shot down, so now this is where having a method, we could recover right here. In my opinion, we have the upper hand. Should be in our Goliath as well. And our Goliath hits at 2 per ring. Let's see if we can get it in the hole. We need to get this in the hole. So 3.7 divided by 2 is 1.85 rings. The first thing we want to do is make sure we got enough room to work out wind. Aiming right at the hole. Wind is 1.85 rings. Using our take shot. There's 1 ring. There's 1.85. And we hit it great. Arrgh. Dag nabbit. Now let me say one other thing before we get done here. If it seems like when you hit that shot, I hit that shot 1 ring great, and when it came out, when it rolled out by the cup, it seemed like it was quite a ways off. My opponent let me back in the game. And the reason it seemed way off is because, let me make this, get back in it. Thank you. Is there a thank you button? Is there a thank you button? Do I have thank you? Thanks. Here's your rings, okay? And when you're looking out there and you're making your wind adjustment here, this is the first bounce where the ball is going to hit. And so at this point right here, with my Goliath, for instance, it's 2 per ring, okay? And we'll be able to demo this better on this shot right here. So it's 2 per ring at the first bounce, but if you hit it 1 ring great and it's 1 ring off at the first bounce, here's where you're at. Here's where you're hitting. And you're perfect. You're right there. You're 1 ring off on the first bounce. Now you're off here. So the farther out you get, the more bounces you have, the more this angle opens up. And so you can be way off at the cup, even though you were only 1 ring off on the first bounce, because those angles are going to get wider. So you have a club that's 2 per ring, and you hit a 1 ring great to the right, you're going to end up way off the cup. Whereas if you had a club that was 100% accurate and it's only 1 ring, so 4.2 divided by 1.1, 3.81 rings. And I am right at minimum. Now I haven't said anything, but I know that this makes a difference that I'm at minimum, but I'm gonna pull the number just so that you can see. 3.81 rings. What I'm trying to do, you see my wind ring, I'm trying to get lined up so that this is is parallel to the angle that I'm pulling here. 3.81 rings. There's 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I hit it 1 ring, 2 rings, 75 rings great to the left. I can't believe that they let me back in it. This is why you never want to give your opponent a safety line. You want to, once they screw up, you need to put the hammer down. Fairway to fairway to fairway to green. Fairway, fairway. Play it. All right, hopefully we'll do some more. I'm going to do some more lessons on it, but I want everybody that's new out there, let's start off today. This is your homework assignment. Go pick a bag. Find the bag that you're going to play with. And we'll talk about picking clubs as well. But pick a bag that you want to play with, and then go get the numbers for your clubs, so that you have numbers for your clubs, so that you know how to make these wind adjustments. And then we will continue to work on making better and more accurate wind adjustments. And we'll also talk about clubs on the next videos. Thanks for watching. And I will be back with another lesson. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the video. And if you're not a subscriber, hit subscribe. Hit the like button if you like the video. And hit the bell to subscribe. Thanks for watching.